Hello everyone and welcome back to Animation Pilgrimage, where we watch every single animated film that was theatrically released in chronological order. I'm Sean.
And I'm Tennille.
And today we are going to be reviewing the half-decade that we have already watched. The last couple decades we've done it where we watched the entire decade and then went over it, but here in the 60s there's so many films, we decided to cut it in half so that we're not trying to have to deal with 40 films at the same time.
Right, because if we did all the 60s at once, it literally would be somewhere around 40 films.
It's exactly 40 films.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so 40 films seems a bit excessive, so we're just going to cut it in half by the year. So we're actually only doing 18 films right now, and then we'll do the other 22 films after we finish those, probably halfway through the year.
Yes.
So, yeah, this is our review show. We're going to...
First, we're gonna quickly go over all the films that we've watched so far, and then we're gonna start breaking them down into categories and talking about what we felt did the best in each of these categories.
Before we do that, between those two, I'm actually going to give us a couple of small factoids, just categorizing some lists and stuff, and seeing the breakdown of how these movies came out, because I love stats and stuff like that. It is an interesting concept to me. Additionally, I just want to remind everyone right now that while there was a lot more movies that came out over these 5 years or 6 years that we are covering, which is 1960 through 1965, these were the only ones that we were able to find either an English dub or sub. So either it was in the original language with subtitles, or it was in English so that we could understand it. We don't understand any other language, and these were the only ones that we were able to find, so these are the only one. That's why we're only watching these films. So if you know other movies from these years and you're like, wait, why didn't you watch blank movie?
It's because if we would have watched it, we wouldn't have been able to understand a word of it. So
if you have some way of getting us a copy that we would understand, let us know, and we would definitely want to watch it.
Yeah.
Because that's the point of this show. But either way, let's go ahead and get started with the list of movies that we watched for this segment of time.
Yes. So, starting off, we had Alakazam the Great, which is a Japanese film made by Toei Animation in 1960.
After that was It Was I Who Drew the Little Man from the USSR, also from 1960.
After that, we go to 1961 for Walt Disney's 101 Dalmatians.
Following that is Cipollino, once again a USSR film in 1961.
1961 also brought us another film from the USSR called The Key.
1962 takes us back to America with Gay Puri from Warner Brothers Animation.
1962 also gave us the art house film Heaven and Earth Magic.
And the USSR once again gives us a film, The Wild Swans, 1962.
Then we jump to 1963, where we only have one film, and that is Walt Disney's The Sword and the Stone.
1964 starts off with Of Stars and Men from the USA.
Then we have Hey There, It's Yogi Bear from Hanna-Barbera Studios, also in 1964.
Havoc in Heaven came out in 1964 in China.
And then our last USSR film for the foreseeable future is Lefty, also from 1964.
1965 starts off with Gulliver's Travels Beyond the Moon from Toei Animation, once again in Japan.
Then we go back to the USA for a good old western, The Man from Button Willow, 1965.
We stay in the US, sort of, with Willie McBean and his Magic Machine from Rankin Bass, which is a USA, Canada, and Japan project.
we have another team up of countries from the USA and Belgium as they show us Pinocchio in Outer Space.
And 1965 is wrapped up with Italy and their movie West and Soda. And that's it. Those are the 18 films that we're going to be covering here. It was a mess.
Yeah, to be honest, like, I kind of want to just talk about this decade a little bit before we continue.
Mm-hmm.
A half decade, I should correct myself. This has been a tough half decade to get through.
Yeah, it's like we had a couple of films that were good, and then we had a bunch that were weird, and then a couple that were actively bad. And this is the first decade where we've had that.
It's so strange because I've been expecting this to happen for a while. Like, I thought this was how Animation Pilgrimage was kind of gonna go. You know,
where we'd have good and bad films.
Yeah,
every
especially
decade.
through the 50s. Like, I thought the 50s is really when we were going to see a lot of, like, mediocre and, like, kind of middling stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But no, for the most part, Animation Pilgrimage has just been such a positive experience, and every once in a while, you know, we get a dud. But there was usually at least something interesting about it, or something entertaining about it.
Mm-hmm.
This half decade so far, we've seen a lot of just, like, this
weird experimental films.
Yeah,
and
this
stuff
was
like
weird,
that.
experimental, and I really didn't like it. And then when you look up the facts about it, there's really not anything special to go about from it from there either.
Yeah.
And I hate being negative when it comes to, like, the award show and Animation Pilgrimage in general. But, like, this is the first time I'm really seeing a degrade in quality.
Yeah. It's like, honestly, a lot of these films just don't feel as good as the films we got last decade.
Mm-hmm.
From the U.S. Some of the other countries, like, they still seem to be continuing to improve.
Right, like Russia, Japan.
Well, Russia's kind of like a 50-50.
Yeah, but they're still doing what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like, it's still all very familiar as Russian animation and all that.
But Japan was definitely improving.
Yeah, that's for sure. And even China had a film that, like, really improved what we had seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And same with Italy.
Yeah.
So stuff outside of the US is nice, at least.
Mm-hmm.
But it's stuff inside the US that's just gone completely crazy. Because there's been such a high bar of quality for things coming out in the US, thanks mostly in part to Disney. But now not only is Disney lowering its bar of quality,
they're not releasing as many films.
They're not releasing as many films, and a lot of other places are releasing films, and I don't like what I have to see.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah. Now let's do a little bit of breakdown by country.
Sure.
So, of the 18 films that we watched this year, we had 7.5 films made in the U.S. The other half of that one film was made in Belgium.
Yeah.
Only 2 of those were from Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a steep drop because I believe they had 9 in the first decade, 5 last decade, and only 2 here.
But this is a half decade.
I guess that's true, but we also only get 1 more out of the rest of this decade.
Exactly.
So there is a significant drop-off in Disney films, which is both a good and bad thing because supposedly that means they'll actually be spending a lot more time on each individual film.
Ha ha ha! If only. That's what that meant. I mean, if you guys have been watching Animation Pilgrimage up to this point, or you also know your Disney knowledge, you'll know that it's not because of that. It's because they've split the animation team up. The animation team resources are a lot less because Walt's working on the parks and movies and
his live action movies and
animation films in general are something that Walt's brother Roy is just kind of trying to sweep under the rug and stop Walt from making altogether.
Yay.
Yep.
Anyways, moving on, the USSR gave us 5 films still this decade. But unfortunately, that's it.
Yeah, we don't have any more in the second half of the decade.
And I don't know when we'll see more after that.
Yeah.
They're just kind of on hiatus right now because of the
Cold War.
because of the ruling that is going on in their country.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is not great. Japan gave us 2 films, both from Toei Animation.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely made other films, but we just couldn't find copies of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. China gave us 1, and now they're done.
For the rest of the decade.
Because
However,
they
we
had
did...
a change of ruling as well.
Yeah, we did know that, like, part of the film that we watched from China was made at one point, and then the second half was made at another, so...
Yeah. The second half is when we, like...
we watched the full thing.
Yeah, we watched the full thing on the date of the second half as compared to the first, because that would be weird. And Italy gave us their second ever film this decade. Past that, the only other thing I have to list off is that there's technically one more movie that was made by USA, Japan, and Canada, which is the Rankin Bass film, and that's so split up and outsourced that I don't even know who to count that under.
Yeah.
Also, just one other breakdown I want to make note of here. We had 15 traditionally animated films. Mm-hmm. We had 2 that were paper cut out. So that was
Lefty
and
Heaven and Earth
Heaven
Magic.
and Earth Magic. Yep.
Yeah.
And then we had the one stop motion film, which was Rankin Bass's Willie McBean and His Magic Machine. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all the like stats and breakdown I want to cover.
Yeah.
Just kind of an interesting. It's still the U.S. and Russia that gave us the most animation, which has been how it's been the last couple decades. Mm-hmm. But I have a big feeling that that's going to be changing up
real soon.
I mean, for one thing, Russia's done.
Yeah.
They're gone. So someone else is going to have to fill that shoes as the second ringer to the USA. I don't know who that's going to be. My guess is Japan, but I could be wrong.
I mean, that would be my guess as well.
Okay. So, are you ready to get into the Lizard and Cat Award Show?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're going to go over, or we're going to have a lot of different categories here. Some of them are the same as what we've done in the past, and some of them we've changed or edited because...
Choosing categories for this half decade was difficult. We like to choose categories that we feel fit the films that came out. That way we highlight what we felt was really good and, ignore the things that don't really warrant much attention.
Exactly.
But, like... This half decade was so varied
all over the place. It was
hard. That it was hard making a category that you could put 3 films into.
Yeah, because if we want to put at least 3 films into any specific category, otherwise, what's the point in trying to make it? Mm-hmm. Because it's like, well, this one was obviously better than this other one.
Right, like there's genres of films here, but it's like we can't call out this genre and pick a best from this genre because there's only 2 films in this one, and one is a satire of the genre, so it's not even that
a proper
representation. It's gosh, my brain hurts.
But either way, we have some general categories we want to cover before we get into the actual film categories.
Yes.
First one we want to cover is the best character animation. We're not dividing it up or anything. We're not doing best actor, best actress, and best just comedic animation. We're just doing one overall category this time.
And that's for a very, very specific reason, and I feel like Sean knows exactly why. Mm-hmm. It's because there's only one winner of this category, and the whole film just kind of gets it, and nothing else even really comes close.
Yep.
And that is 101 Dalmatians.
Yep, 101 Dalmatians, just the entire film. You can tell that this is the movie that the Disney team was still fairly put together at this point, and they actually still cared quite a bit about making a top quality production, and they did it.
Yeah.
Every character is a fantastic joy to watch. I love watching... I can't think of the humans' names.
Roger and Anita?
Yeah, I like watching Roger and Anita, but most Notably, I love Cruella herself. She is just mesmerizing to watch. She is so much fun to watch, and like all the dogs are very well animated as well, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah, and everybody in that film has a personality, and like
it comes across in their animation too.
Right, which is what this award is about. It's about the character animation, and like Roger, Anita, Cruella, and then the dogs to a smaller extent.
Yeah.
All have character animation that is praised to this day as some of like animation's nicest character animation.
I agree wholeheartedly.
And Sword in the Stone has some nice bits of character animation in it.
Speaking of which, I want to just draw special attention to Merlin. Merlin specifically from that movie. I think he easily has the best animation out of that entire film.
Yeah.
And like he just has fantastic things where he's constantly like messing with his beard and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of great visual gags with him that all work because of the animation.
Yes. Exactly. It's like he just has like little eccentricities that are for him specifically that like no one else in that movie does and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's not to say that Sword in the Stone is a poorly animated film. It's not.
No.
It's just 101 Dalmatians takes the cake and then runs away with it, eats it all, and doesn't let anybody else have any.
Indeed. Okay. Do you have any other honorable mentions or anything?
No. It felt disingenuous to put anything other than 101 Dalmatians on this category.
Okay. One other note I want to make, they're not necessarily winning by any means, but I just want to draw a special note to the animation on the robots in Gulliver's Travels Beyond the Moon. Because they move so interestingly. Like, it's just this giant army of very basic looking robots, but they move in a way that you don't see robots move today. Because this is still like super early on when people didn't know how robots moved. And then I just love the animation quirk of when they get hit with water, which destroys them, they turn into cubes for some reason. And it just feels very, very Japan.
It's a very deliberate choice on their part. Like, someone obviously planned that out, and they went with it. And yeah, I think you have a good point. Like, that's very...
It's like, it was very
cool.
deliberate and interesting. Even if it's not like the best animated thing, it's so weird and interesting to look at that I had to bring it up here.
Yeah. So, next we move on to our award for the best character design.
I mean, it goes to Cruella, right?
Yeah, I didn't even, yet again, it's
blink.
just like, okay, Cruella, and then I kind of skimmed through the list of movies again, and I'm like, no, nothing else even comes close. Cruella de Vil.
She is such a masterpiece to look at.
I love the design of this scrawny, skeleton-esque woman inside this giant fur coat. Like, the contrast there is so good. And it's just like the contrast of her hair, like the white and the black, and just everything about her.
Thick and thin, yeah.
Yeah.
It works so well. Now, she wins, but I did want to bring up two other characters that I thought had pretty good design.
Okay.
And they're kind of the same character.
Okay.
I want to bring up Sung Wukong from Uproar in Heaven and Alakazam from Alakazam the Great, because it's still Sung Wukong, but they're two very different but distinct iterations of the same character.
Yes.
And I enjoy both of them.
I did consider putting them down, but then I was like, no, Cruella de Vil's too good.
Because it's like Sung Wukong from Uproar in Heaven, you look at him and it's like, yes, this is a very distinct, very Chinese styling of a very interesting and well-known mythological character. And then you look at Alakazam, and you're like, wow, that is the same character, but this is if he was actually a realistic chimpanzee or something.
He's very cute.
Oh yeah, he is adorable.
All the monkeys in that movie are very cute.
And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because it's very good character design.
Right.
He's
Both of them are very charming and charismatic and appealing, but in different ways.
Yes. All right, moving on, we have the best musical sequence. We didn't put just overall music in this year because there's not a lot of music.
There's not a lot of good music. There's a lot of music.
There's a lot of music, but it's not good.
Yeah. Like, if we had to pick best song, it'd yet again probably just be like, I don't know, Cruella de Vil.
Uh-huh.
And, like, that's it.
So we're going with best musical sequence, and what we mean by that is, where is the music and animation, like,
working together
in a very cohesive and interesting way. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, this also goes to 101 Dalmatians with Cruella de Vil, the song.
I actually don't have that on my list.
Really?
Nope.
Oh. Well, okay, that's mine. That's the one I had.
That's it?
No, I had one other. But
okay.
It was more of an honorable mention than anything else.
I have two.
Okay.
And they're both from Gulliver's Travels Beyond the Moon.
Oh, okay.
I have the space training musical sequence.
Yes, okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the But also...
Yeah, I labeled that as Earth Song from Gulliver's Travels because I don't know what it's called, but it's like this happy song where they're singing about how Earth is cool and stuff. And then also... Demo. It gets really sad and talks about how it's terrible and awful on Earth because we're not taking care of it.
Yeah.
And we're not taking care of each other and stuff.
I just think, I do really, like, don't get me wrong, I really love the animation and, like, the character interactions in the Cruella de Vil song. I think it's very unique. But both of these just stood out to me more because in the space training sequence, it's just so fun, and there's, like, an obvious, like, uptick in the animation. Like, the animation just gets so vibrant and full of, like, personality, and it's just a fun sequence to watch. I watched it over and over again when I was editing the episode together for Animation Pilgrimage, and I'll probably be watching it again after this because I just really, really love the sequence.
That's true.
And then the But Also song is just really powerful. The music and the visuals go together perfectly to create a very jarring but very powerful sequence.
It's like, because it's so jarring, it sinks in with you a lot more.
Yeah, you're not going to forget it anytime soon.
Nope. Moving on, we have Best Art Direction. Which movie looked the best and most cohesive in all across their art direction? Not just character design, but also backgrounds and, like, extraneous characters and, like, fluff animation. Why did I say fluff animation?
I don't know,
but, like, visual effects and stuff like that. What looks the most cohesive?
I actually have a few things listed for this.
I have two, and then two honorable mentions.
Okay. I think it goes without saying again, 101 Dalmatians is probably on both of our lists.
Yeah.
Yeah, because...
It just, everything about it works together.
Yeah, from the opening title sequence to the very last frame, like... It all just looks so good, and it's such a different look for Disney, too.
Yeah.
And they pulled it off spectacularly.
Yeah, it was like a very modern styling.
And Ken Anderson was the lead art director on that film, and it all just works so well.
My other film was Havoc in Heaven.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the entire movie has one specific art style, and that is traditional Chinese tapestry or painting. And it goes with it the whole time. Every character will move in a very strange way because that's the art direction they chose, and that everyone has to move in a way that would look like it's a still frame. And so everyone has a very specific color palette and like
Posing,
art direction, everything about that movie fits one style and they never let up.
Yeah.
And that's why I had to put it on here. It's like this is what they were going for and they did it very well.
You bring up a very good point. That is not on my list though. I also have Weston Soda on my list.
It was an honorable mention on mine.
Okay. Yeah, this film just... the art direction's just on point, and like all the characters are very like the
exaggerated, perfectly.
The backgrounds, like it all works very cohesively, and then like they have these beautiful special effects in this film that like just really make the film shine, even though it's limited animation and stuff. Like I feel like this is a really good example of limited animation done right.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
My other one that I put on my list, and this one's more of an honorable mention than 101 Dalmatians and Weston Soda, but it's Lefty.
I also put that on my honorable mentions because they went with a very interesting art style here. Like, how would you describe this? Like newspaper cartoon?
I don't know.
Or like illustrated book? I don't know. It like you look at this and you're like, oh yeah, I understand.
It is like
I know this art style.
Illustrations come to life.
Yeah, and then the papercraft just adds to that. But like it has this very distinct style, and it just sticks with it the whole time, and it's
for one
visually
sequence where it does switch to traditional animation, but like that also
it works because it's a dream sequence.
Right.
It's like a sick, dying man's fever dream.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that the art style changed.
Where the film itself kind of failed to leave too much of an impact on me, the art direction really did.
Yes, I agree. It definitely stuck with me because of the art direction.
All right. And with that gets our
kind
artistry.
Of like, the artistic sense of all these movies out of the way. Now we're just going to be talking about what was the best film overall in specific categories.
Yes.
And what are those categories, Tennille?
We have fantasy, sci-fi, comedy, action-adventure, and then our fifth very strange category, contemporary, because we couldn't figure out
where to put all the other films.
Yeah. So we felt like contemporary was the best way to sum up the rest of them.
Okay, so the first category is fantasy, and do you want to cover what films we consider to be fantasy films? And again, you might disagree with us, but we're just kind of stretching it here. It's difficult, okay, to categorize films.
It's very hard, especially when so many of them are trying something very different and very much their own thing. But yeah.
We had to figure out where to put them. And note that some of these films will be in multiple categories.
Yes. Alright, so in the fantasy category, we have Alakazam the Great, Cipollino, The Key, The Wild Swans, The Sword in the Stone, and Uproar in Heaven.
Okay. And I only picked one movie for this.
I picked two.
And mine was a big question mark.
Yeah, this was a really hard category.
I honestly didn't feel like any of these movies really stood out from each other as like, yes, I think this is objectively the best out of this category. But the one I went with was Uproar in Heaven.
Okay. I went with The Sword in the Stone and The Key. And mostly because there's certain elements of both of these films I really, really enjoy. But neither of them, both of them have elements that I really, really don't enjoy.
Okay, that's fair.
And yeah, they both just kind of sit in that middle ground for me, where it's like I have fond memories of watching these films, but then I think about it a little bit more and I'm like, but also...
Demo.
Yeah, because The Key, I really love... I love the old man. The grandfather is the main character. I think he's a very strong personality. Like, I really just like his character and how, like, gotta get this done.
You gotta do the hard work thing, yo.
Yeah, and I like, his relationship with his grandson. And the imagery in this movie is, like, fun.
And it's definitely telling some message here.
Right.
Pretty stilted.
Yeah, one that I'm not, like, 100% down with, but they also execute it fairly well, so I'm like, alright, okay. But then also, like, all the other characters are really annoying.
Yeah.
There's this whole sequence where this boy goes to, like, this place where there's a multi-headed dragon. We didn't even talk about it in Animation Pilgrimage, because, like, we forgot it happened, but it takes up, like, victory. 10 minutes, and...
It's literally called the Easy Victory
like the road to
success
or something.
And everything's just handed to him.
Yeah.
Which, again, is just kind of like the point of the movie.
Yeah.
It's not worth it if it's handed to you.
Right. And then Sword in the Stone, like, I really like Merlin, and I really like Archimedes, and I really like this and that, but, like...
The overarching movie as a whole...
it's just kind of either A, boring, or B, like, if you're actually paying attention and watching it, really sad, and in a way that the movie doesn't really... acknowledge properly. So, yeah. That's why I chose both of those films.
I chose Uproar in Heaven because it felt like the most cohesively good. Probably.
Maybe.
But it's
the
also...
soundtrack really, really dampened my experience of that whole film.
The soundtrack of only clacking and booming. And so many cymbals. I feel like that the soundtrack soured me on the film so much that I can't even really appreciate a lot of the good things about it. Okay. But, like, it's like those other films. It's like, there's good parts and bad parts. So this was a really difficult category, for sure.
Next we move on to sci-fi, which we only have 3 movies in this category. We have Of Stars and Men, which only barely qualifies as a sci-fi film because it's like
Talking
a documentary.
About science?
Yeah. It's just the sci, not so much the fi.
So just deal with it, okay?
Yeah. And then we have Gulliver's Travels Beyond the Moon and Pinocchio in Outer Space.
I think this is a pretty obvious winner.
Yeah, this is a easy win.
This is very much so a Gulliver's Travels Beyond the Moon.
Yeah.
Wins this one. The story is great. The art direction is fantastic. The animation's really good.
The characters are fun.
The characters are really fun. The science is really silly and goofy because people don't understand space that well yet.
By the time you get to the end of the movie, you're gonna have some, like, Miyazaki vibes. Yeah, it's a fun time.
I really enjoyed this movie.
And I really recommend it to anybody who's a fan of Japanese animation.
Absolutely.
I mean, and a fan of old animation. Like, I don't think a modern audience is going to get too much out of this, but...
Probably not.
But if you love animation and you love Japanese animation, I think this will be a fun watch for you.
I have to reiterate, don't watch it on Amazon Prime because they have a terrible 4x3 VHS rip that is discolored all to heck.
Yeah.
You can watch the full Japanese version on YouTube, at least at the time of recording this. It might have been taken down by now, who knows. But find the original Japanese with subtitles if you can.
It should be widescreen.
That's the important thing.
Yeah, if it's 4x3, look somewhere else.
Next category.
Comedy. We have Gay Paris, The Sword and the Stone, Hey There, It's Yogi Bear, Lefty, Willie McBean and His Magic Machine, and Weston Soda.
Before we go any farther, I want to say the reason we put Lefty in here is I have no idea where to put Lefty, and I'm using comedy in, like, the Shakespearean sense of, like, it's a tragedy comedy.
It's like a dark comedy, like, oh, look at us. Because, I mean, in a way, from what we could tell, our Russian viewers did kind of, like, fill us in a little bit on what's going on with that one, it is kind of a poking fun at ourselves kind of film, with also, like, a dark message. Yeah. So, yeah, we're using it as kind of like a black comedy kind of thing. And we know this doesn't really work, but really...
It doesn't go anywhere else.
It doesn't go in any of the other categories, so
We wanted
Just go with us here.
It's not winning, but it had to fit in a category somewhere, okay? I have one very definitive winner for this category.
I do too.
Weston Soda.
Weston Soda.
This movie was just fun. It was funny. I enjoyed this movie.
It's the only one in this category that I feel succeeds at being a comedy.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, while the other films made me laugh or chuckle here and there, Weston Soda made me guffaw a couple of times.
Guffaw. Wow, I have not heard that word in a while.
I had to come up with something else that wasn't chuckle or laugh.
Okay. And, I mean, there's a couple of movies in here that could almost be categorized as romances.
Yeah,
like Gay Paris.
Gay Paris is definitely supposed to be more of like a drama, romance, like a rom-com.
Mm-hmm. But there's not really any other movies that fit that category, so we didn't include it yet. We'll probably start doing that later.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, again, so many movies spread across so many
different genres.
Mm-hmm. Now we have the action-adventure.
Do we want to say anything more about Weston Soda?
Oh, Weston Soda. It's good. Watch
it's good.
it.
It's really funny. It's a little dated, but I mean, it's a movie from the 60s, so what can you do?
It's like, yeah, some of the jokes don't really work now, but most of them do. And
yeah,
they're
and
still
the timing on the jokes is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
This movie had me laughing and happy to be watching it.
Pretty much the entire time.
Yeah, within the first few minutes.
Yeah, and that's good.
Yeah. Okay, so action-adventure. We have 3 movies in this category. We have Uproar in Heaven, Alakazam, and The Man from Buttonwillow.
Now, you could say, wait, where's the Western category?
Considering we have multiple Western films.
We have 2.
We have 2.
And the one's more of a parody of Westerns than it's an actual Western. So
yeah.
The Western movie got thrown in the action-adventure section with the 2...
Sun Wukong films.
The 2 Sun Wukong films. That being said, Uproar in Heaven.
I put Alakazam.
Yeah?
The soundtrack really ruined Uproar in Heaven for me.
But Alakazam has been recut to hell.
Yeah, and I didn't even like it all that much.
Yeah.
But I'd still rather watch Alakazam again than rewatch Uproar in Heaven.
Wow. Holy cow.
I got a really bad headache watching that film.
Okay.
Like, the soundtrack really just murdered it.
Murdered it for me. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think we have a whole lot else to say about this.
No, probably not.
Yeah. So, contemporary films. We have 4 in this category. It Was I Who Drew the Little Man, 101 Dalmatians, Gay Paris, and Heaven and Earth Magic.
All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. 101 Dalmatians. We've already talked about how this movie is really good. I don't think we need to talk about it more.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, and technically 101 Dalmatians should fit more into like a drama, comedy, murder, or not murder, but like crime mystery-esque genre, but contemporary was the best we could come up with to fit all the rest of these films into, so...
Mm-hmm. Hopefully going forward we'll be able to categorize things better.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this list works. It's just, it has a few obvious...
Issues. Like contemporary. Okay. Well, with all that being said and done, I think we actually want to talk about what our best 3 movies, our favorite 3 movies, and our least favorite movies of the decade, this is a first for one of these reviews, but we feel like we can actually definitively say, yes, these movies were bad.
Yeah, these movies we did not like, and it's the first time we've really come across films that we really didn't like.
Yeah, like actively think this is a bad film and I don't think people should watch it type of movie.
Mm-hmm.
Not all 3 of the ones on this list are that bad, but it's like we're actually getting bad films now.
Yeah. So first let's talk about the good.
Do you want to start with the good, or do we want to
Get the bad out of the way.
Do the bad, and then end on a good note.
Sure. Let's do that. So
Okay.
our bottom 3 films, I think this is... I'm just going to throw my list out there, because I assume you have the...
Exact same 3?
Yeah.
Probably.
Willie McBean and His Magic Machine.
Yes.
The Man from Buttonwillow.
Yes.
And Heaven and Earth Magic.
That is the exact order I had them as well.
Yep.
From worst to least worst. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe Heaven and Earth Magic and Man from Buttonwillow and Heaven and Earth Magic are about the same for me. They're both bad, but in different ways. Mm-hmm. And then Willie McBean and His Magic Machine is an actively horrible movie, and I don't suggest anyone watch this movie ever.
Yeah.
Everything is either racist, incredibly sexist, or just downright not funny. Mm-hmm. The animation is bad, and I hate it.
Yeah.
The music is boring. I don't like any element of this movie. Like, you tried to defend it with, like, good art or, like, good character design.
Well, I was talking more about Rankin Bass in general.
Yeah.
When I was trying to defend it. Like, that's a thing that I think we can say Rankin Bass does fine in general, is they have good character designs. The character designs are some of the weakest... Like, this is some of the weaker character designs I've seen from Rankin Bass, even.
Yeah. But, like, this movie's a deplorable film, and I do not like any part of it, and they didn't do, like, any research into what actual history is, and that's the point of the movie. Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's... Yeah,
it's just a bad movie.
Just don't like it. And then, okay.
Let's actually talk a little bit more about, like, the other 2.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to talk about first?
Heaven and Earth Magic, I guess.
Okay, Heaven and Earth Magic is an art house film that was originally 6 hours long. We didn't watch that version. We watched the hour-long cut. And it's
it
just
felt like 6 hours.
Yeah, it still felt like 6 hours. It's just an art house film where weird things happen.
Someone who was obviously on drugs made a film while also on drugs.
And just kind of like moved papercraft stuff around and then said there was a plot in there somewhere, and you just kind of have to believe it because it's weird. And like the same like 5 poorly edited sound effects keep chopping in.
Yeah, but it's also a film that's supposed to be like reorchestrated every so many years so that you watch it with like different modern music and blah blah blah. I don't know. I don't think that would make the film any better.
No. Needless to say, I'm not inherently against art house films, but this one was not up my alley by any means, and I don't think it was up most people's.
No. The only positive things I've seen people say about it are from people who are like, I loved watching this movie when I was high. So...
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
That's your recommendation, I guess.
Not a recommendation from us, though.
No, not from us.
But from some rando on the internet.
If you were high, you might like it. Might.
Maybe.
The Man from Buttonwillow is just kind of a mess of a movie. I don't think it's inherently bad, but more than anything, it was just boring. The art direction was all over the place. The 3 main characters don't look like they fit in the same film.
Mm-hmm. It's trying to tell several stories at once. It's trying to be a Western and like, Disney's Bambi at the same time.
Yeah, and then also there's like a boat fight for no reason. I mean, there's a reason, but like this doesn't feel like it should be in a Western. If you know what I mean. It feels like it could be in any other action movie, but why do we have this boat fight in a Western movie? Shouldn't there be some sort of gunfight or horse fight? Anything? Yeah,
and then you just have like the added awkwardness of like how the characters interact with Stormy and how the townspeople interact with the main lead guy. Mm-hmm. And it just all kind of... None of it's explicitly bad.
I mean, Stormy is bad, but she's an enjoyable character for being obviously, like, horribly stereotyped out the wazoo in the wrong directions.
Right.
Like, she's
Like, they
supposed
were
to be a
trying to make a
Chinese...
Chinese girl, and they ended up giving her a whole lot of Japanese characteristics, and you're just like, oh...
There's no reason she should be wearing this clothing other than to reiterate the fact that she's a Chinese girl, and then also she just keeps using Japanese terminology.
And the fact that, like, the guy who's... The lead guy's like, oh, I'm like your father now, but I'm not actually gonna adopt you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be your actual father. I'll just be kind of like your father and not really adopt you because I don't feel comfortable with that.
Right. It's just...
Like, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I want to wrap this decade up by just saying that, like, or reiterating that I thought we were going to get this kind of content earlier than now. And I mean, and it makes sense that it's coming out now, because now we finally have other animation studios, you know, coming around, and...
It's not just Fleischer Bros giving us a weird movie every now and again or something.
Right, but I thought Fleischer Bros was going to, like, dip into this category every once in a while. Or, you know, we'd get some weird film to just come out from the time that would also, like, embody a lot of these negative aspects about American culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's telling that it's not until television comes around that we...
See this horrible dip in quality.
Yeah.
It's
and
so
I can
interesting.
Going through this and seeing this, I can understand how animation got some of the stigmas that we're still trying to fight to this day.
Yeah. It's because television came around and the production quality just went down because nobody cared.
And it's not inherently television's fault.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, animation's been dealing with these kind of stigmas since the dawn of time. You know, we had the shorts market that just did not ask for the correct price on the quality of their content. Like, these were basically being made for free just to keep the studios going. Like they worked bare minimum. And then you get to television and the problem just gets worse.
Yeah.
And there's zero quality control on what's being put out there. The only thing that people care about is in a law that was made 30 years ago to stop the Fleischer Bros from releasing sexual content in their cartoons.
Yeah.
And that's the only law that, like...
anyone follows.
Yeah, when it comes to, like, the quality of animation that's going out there.
But hey, we can have characters smoking.
Oh yeah, we can have characters smoking, we have characters being racist, we can have characters being sexist, because of course those are movements that the general population doesn't really care about at this point.
Not yet, at least.
Yeah.
It starts here in the 60s.
But we're not there yet.
It's not going to show up yet for us.
And the fact that the film industry is predominantly old white men.
Yeah.
And animation is just as bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have a few cases, specifically cases at Disney, sometimes a couple of cases at Warner Brothers, where, you know, you do see a person of color or a woman make it pretty far in the industry. Mary Blair is somebody who immediately comes to mind. Mm-hmm. But, you know, that still doesn't erase the fact that it is 99% old white guys.
Yeah.
And it shows.
Yep, it definitely shows. Well, do we want to talk about our top 3 movies then?
Yes, let's end on a positive note.
On a positive note. These we might be a little different on. I'm not sure.
I don't think we will be.
Okay.
Maybe, unless you put Uproar in Heaven.
No, I did not put Uproar in Heaven in my top 3 movies. It's just, it fit best for those 2 categories, which there wasn't a lot of good stuff in either of those categories this time around. No, I think I have a definitive best, and then 2 others that I think are right behind it.
Same.
So
for me, or do you want to go first?
I'll go first this time.
Okay.
101 Dalmatians was definitely the best movie of this decade. Half decade.
Yeah, agreed.
It's pretty easy. It's just, it had the best budget, best quality, most enjoyability overall throughout the entire film.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about it worked. There was nothing bad, like inherently bad about it. It has some funny jokes and jabs at like the TV, or like it's like it pokes fun at TV already.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious, and it's just like starting up. And then my other two films were Gulliver's Travels Beyond the Moon and Weston Soda.
That's exactly the same as mine.
Okay. I wasn't sure if there was going to be another one in there. That I didn't know if you were going to like throw the Sword and the Stone in it or something.
No.
Gulliver's Travels Beyond the Moon, I genuinely enjoy this movie. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoy it, and it just like encompasses that feeling that you get from watching a Japanese film. It's just like they sometimes do weird things, and it's fun.
Yeah.
I just really enjoy it, and the character, like the main character was enjoyable. The other characters were there, they existed. Like the visual aspects of it was always a spectacle to see.
Yeah.
And like the musical sequences, like we talked about earlier, were really good.
Mm-hmm. And I think they have, like, this film has points where it's like, all right, these are the low budget shots and these are the high budget shots.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on how you feel about that, you know, whether you prefer like a consistent
Quality,
or you don't mind the like,
oh, they put all their money into this fight sequence and then they just have people literally just standing there talking to each other for like 5 minutes.
That's a very Japanese animation thing to do.
Mm-hmm. It's like that's their workflow and that's their mantra. That's what they think is important.
Right.
And I mean, it pays off for them most of the time.
Yeah, and I think this is a strong example of that because you have sequences that really, really stand out to me in this. Both of the song sequences I mentioned earlier, the fight scenes with the robots are fun. Like that whole last third of the movie just really is great.
Mm-hmm.
And the opening title sequence where like the boys walking through the deserted streets and it's just like these panning shots of
dark houses and stuff.
Yeah, alleyways and stuff like that. That's all fantastic. I love that. I will say that the first third of this movie and then like everything besides the sequences we mentioned do have that dip in quality.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole segment where they're at an amusement park.
And it doesn't really go anywhere.
It doesn't really go anywhere.
Other than, like, it's just moving on with the plot.
Right. It's just the characters kind of having fun, and it's not terribly well animated or, like, shot.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm willing to forgive it for the rest of the film being so much fun.
Yeah. And then Weston Soda was, again, just a really fun comedy.
Yeah.
And, like, a prime example of how limited animation can be used very effectively. It's like, I love these characters. I love, like, when near the beginning of the movie, the two lackeys walk into the bar and they're just, like, right behind each other and just, like, sidestep over to the bar and, like, the one slides out from behind the other one.
Oh, yeah, and there's so many fantastic visual gags.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Clementine saying, like, she needs to go milk the cows, and so she just, like, goes up to him and then, like, pulls the door and, like, pulls milk out of a cow like it's a refrigerator. And, like, there's so many great gags like that that they don't spend a whole lot of time like, oh, wow, look at this funny thing we're doing. No, it's just like...
It just happens and you move on.
It happens and you move on, and it's fantastic.
Like, one of the cows gets hooked on smoking.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, there's just so much random stuff.
And, yeah, it's obviously one of those things where people were just kind of, like, throwing jokes at the wall to see what would work. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, they work.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was the first 6 years of the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
It was,
Join us for the last 4.
Yeah, it was all over the place. I'm curious to see how the rest of this decade is going to pan out.
Yeah, I mean, doing just a quick glance at the list, there is a lot of films here I don't recognize at all. But I know that we've done, like, a little bit of searching and digging to see, like, what we're in for.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get a lot more from Japan, that's for sure.
We're going to get a lot more variety.
Mm-hmm.
There's gonna be some places we have not gone yet.
Yeah, places that children aren't allowed to go.
Yeah,
And
because the
we'll-
60s and 70s like to go to dark places sometimes.
Dark, amber-lit places.
Oh, it gets steamy, y'all.
And again, we're only covering theatrically released films here. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean all films released to theaters are for kids.
No.
That being said, we'll make sure to warn people before episodes start if kids should not watch said movie.
Exactly.
But anyways, like other than that, we still have a lot of weird stuff going on. We only have one Disney film, which is a curious thing. Just
It makes me sad.
it's like, oh, there's that. Okay.
It makes me really sad. So, join us back here next time as we start the journey to finish up the 60s.
And what is our first movie?
We have Alice of Wonderland in Paris.
Okay.
Not Alice in Wonderland. Alice of Wonderland in Paris. This is one I don't know what to expect from.
I have no idea.
But we'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.
1年365氷が溶けて春が来る花びらくるくる村から町へ小枝の隙間にお日様がほら覗いているよでも